We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When we conceptualize the identity of an American, this quote from the Declaration of Independence often comes to mind. From East Coast to West Coast, Americanness can be sort of generalized into this insistence and love for freedom and equality. Though this is by all means a gross oversimplification of American identity and even probably an unfair or inaccurate characterization of all Americans, this definition prevailed and has come to define the United States of America. Out of so many freedom-loving countries, the Declaration of Independence can't be the only distinguishing factor that defines America. Off the top of my head, I can think about qualities such as individual heroism seen in Hollywood movies, the pride of being a self-made man during colonial era, American exceptionalism, and the list goes on and on. So you may ask, why am I rambling on about national identity? Hey guys, this is Kevin. This semester in college, I took a class called The Greek Revolution of 1821 and Its Legacy, taught by the amazing Nikolas Kaffoufa. The aim of this course is to use an interdisciplinary approach to analyzing the revolution in Greece from the perspectives of history, anthropology, comparative literature, political science, film studies, and queer studies. It was an inspirational course which led me to consider the construction of national identity in revolution, specifically the idea of Greekness generated during the Revolution of 1821. For those of you who are not familiar with Greek history, the general geographical region of what we now call Greece spent nearly 400 years under the rule of the Ottoman Empire from around 1453 to 1821. During the Ottoman rule, the Greeks were given some freedom but were mainly subject to abuses of the local pashas, or Ottoman governors or officers. Generally speaking, the millet system instated in Greece segregated the population by religious faith. The Muslim Greeks reigned superior over Christian Greeks. In 1814, a secret organization called Philiki Eteria, the Friendly Society, started planning the liberation of Greece from Ottoman rule. Initially, the effort was largely unimpactful, but in 1821, the long-contemplated insurrection took shape in the Danubian principalities and inspired other regions in Greece to rebel against the Ottomans. Between 1821 and 1829, the struggles between Greeks and Turks witnessed the intervention of great powers such as Russians, French, and English. By 1830, the Greeks emerged victorious in the fight for their independence, and the revolution came to be a cornerstone to the formation of a Greek identity. In subsequent jubilees, the 50th, 100th, and 150th year anniversaries of independence, revisits to the inspiring and uniting revolutionary struggles again and again renew, retell, and rebrand the revolution through portrayals of individual heroes in cinema. Prompted by one of the film theory scholars Eleftheria Thanouli's words, if we ignore the type of history produced and disseminated into society by historical film, we risk appearing to future generations as naive and short-sighted as those who thought Herodotus and Thucydides were the spoilers of the truths and wisdom conveyed in the oral tradition. This video will focus on two exceptional films depicting two heroes from the Greek Revolution. Hopefully, from them, we can get a glimpse into how each film understands Greekness and what being Greek means to each of them. I've chosen God Loves Caviar, directed by Yannis Smaragdis in 2012, and Cliffs of Freedom, directed by Van Ling in 2019. The two films offer drastically different approaches to understanding the revolution. While the former is directed by a Greek director and focuses on a freedom-loving Greek pirate's tumultuous life during the revolution, the latter is directed by a Hollywood-American director focusing on a Greek heroine's struggle between keeping her Greek honor and succumbing to her love for an Ottoman army officer. As you will see, though these films recount very different stories and impart distinct values, Greekness seems to be, in a form or another, identity-finding in adversity, In other words, Greekness is found through exploration and hardship. Specifically, to be Greek seems to revolve around the motifs of leaving for oneself and returning for a greater cause. Let me explain. God Loves Caviar limns for us the true story of Ioannis Varvakis, a Greek pirate born for conquering the sea, swearing no allegiance to anyone or any country but to freedom and the sea. Serendipity dictates that the Russian Navy prized Varvakis' superior mastery of the waves and requested for his assistance in their endeavor to battle the Ottoman Navy during the Orlov revolt before the actual revolution. Though he got a taste of a decisive victory, he was soon captured and imprisoned by the Turks. A fellow revolutionary named Alexios Lefendarios bought off the prison guard, facilitating Varvakis' escape. Having earned his precious freedom, he fled straight to Russia, where he befriends Tsarina Catherine II, and landed himself a highly lucrative post in the Russian Navy, captain of the Caspian Sea. He made a great fortune from selling caviar. Though wealthy, accomplished, and respected, he still felt empty, realizing that his countrymen are suffering and that his wealth could help their cause greatly. He decided to contribute to the overthrow of the Ottoman rule in Greece. After his death in 1825, his wealth went to the Ioannis Varvakis Foundation, which continued to empower the Greek population. As we can already see, the narrative arc follows a trajectory of Varvakis leaving a freedom-loving man and returning a savior of his fatherland. Through his journeys, Varvakis gradually grows from a young, selfish pirate to a dutiful benefactor of Greece who seeks to risk everything he's built for a national hope. He then continues to embody the Greek identity, inspiring Greeks to take up arms and fight for the cause. In the beginning of the film, Varvakis returns from his adventure on the open sea to learn that his mistress has given birth to his daughter. He is elated but also disappointed. He's glad to have a child, but disappointed that the child isn't a boy. The mistress apologizes and promises that their next child will be a boy. But Varvakis' mother says, "He didn't marry you, he married the sea."
She's drunk.
Not a boy.
Next time is something.
What next time? He didn't marry you. He married the sea, blast him.
This is one of the instances where we, the audience, learn that Varvakis' obsession with the sea transcends familial ties. It is then also implied that his allegiance to the sea and the freedom that accompanies it dwarfs the feeling of Greekness. A few scenes later, Lefendarios, on behalf of the Russian Navy General Orlov, invites Varvakis to join their assault on Ottoman fleet, to which Varvakis responds, "Politics don't interest me, sea is my country."
Freedom.
I am free.
I mean, our country's freedom.
Oh. Politics doesn't interest me. The sea is my country. I don't see any Turks. Do you?
Again, we see his loyalty to the sea. However, his response enriches our understanding of him. Though in previous scenes, it is established that he values the sea more than the family, this scene illustrates his absolute indifference towards patriotism and politics. Basically, he is a man without civic involvement and detached from his fatherland. It can be said that Varvakis' indifference reflects the state of Greece at the time. After almost 400 years of Ottoman dominion, it is not rare to find waning national pride and ethnic pride amidst the population. To any of us modern viewers who identify as citizen of a specific country, it certainly feels odd to see a nationalist person. Though it is stressed several times that he swears allegiance to the sea, it is nothing of actual substance. Compared to a wife, a daughter, what does the sea bring him? What does he exactly value? The next scene may give us some clues. In his negotiation with the Tsarina, he's offered a post in the Navy enjoying control over the entire Caspian Sea, which serves the Russian imperial interests. Averting any political allegiance, Varvakis again declares, "I am not a spy, shopkeeper, I am a sailor." What does he really mean by sailor? The following exchange between the Tsarina and Varvakis offers some insights.
Let me show you this map. The Ottoman Empire is crumbling. And when it does, we all benefit from it. Freedom is money. The more freedom, the more money.
What about absolute freedom?
No one is absolutely free.
Not even you, Majesty?
Me least of all. Do we understand each other?
The Tsarina explains to Varvakis that Ottoman crumbling means more freedom, and more freedom means more money. Enlightened by that, Varvakis gladly accepts his post. So we see that in Varvakis' mind, not only is politics, family absent from his worldviews, they're fundamentally unable to coexist with his endeavors in the sea. Combining politics and sailing makes him a spy. Merely overseeing Russian trade in the ocean makes him a shopkeeper. What really entices Varvakis about the ocean is wealth, specifically personal wealth. He's a pirate driven solely by personal gain. He loves the sea for the freedom it provides, but more so for the money it can bring to him. After he starts trading in the Caspian Sea, he makes a lot of profit. But as he amasses more wealth, he also starts questioning himself. At the peak of his career, he wakes up to see a woman he's never seen before admiring his luxurious belongings in the house. He first approaches to flirt with her, only to find out she is his abandoned daughter and his mistress has died. This serves as an awakening call for Varvakis that reminds him of what he has overlooked in his quest for personal gain. He has lost his family, abandoned his daughter, thereby renouncing his roots, his home, his identity, his country.
All my life I've prized my freedom. But how can I be free when my country's still enslaved?
After years abroad and after his daughter's arrival, he cannot help but feel like he deserted his fatherland for his own selfish motivations. Evidently, we're seeing this transition in his sentiments towards Greece and his own hedonistic pursuits in his youth. He's starting to cast doubt on his belief in material wealth and personal freedom. When attending one of the meetings discussing the revolution, one of the persons says, "The only thing that matters now is the revolution." Seeing how fanatic and clueless the revolutionaries are at planning this proper revolution, he makes up his mind to prepare for war in his own way, and that is by training his son. From childhood, his son is trained to fight and strategize with little to no control over his life. Varvakis sees it his son's duty to save Greece and not his. Though we see the transition from being completely selfish to devoting his effort into planning for a revolution, Varvakis never internalizes the responsibility, always thinking it is the duty of his son. But how can a Russian-born teenage boy feel any allegiance to a country he has never visited or loved? The son spends a dozen dark, hopeless years in despair under his father's selfish vision. When Varvakis sees his son fit for battle, he gives him a whole fleet. However, the son isn't happy.
A leader to free our Greek people.
Me? I'm no leader.
You're Andrea Varvakis, the son of Lord Varvakis.
Andreas Varvakis doesn't exist anymore. My name is Andrei Romatsov.
What did you do?
I took my mother's name.
The son adopts his mother's Russian last name and does not feel Greek. He says, "What's Greece to me? I've never seen it. I don't want to. To be drunk is the only way he can stand living in his father's big dreams." And he also kills himself. In this second awakening that forces Varvakis to reconcile with his selfish vision and insistence, it forces him to realize that he still has Greekness in him and he should go to great lengths to see it free. In a way, he considered himself similar to his son, a person born without a fatherland and forever free. But seeing his son swear allegiance to Russia compels him to finally assume the responsibility of a Greek. He then sets sail for Greece. He calls Greece home and says the sea is a different blue, my blue, I'm home. For the first time in the film, The sea is not referred to as a borderless cosmopolitan body of water, but one that connoted ownership, a Greek sea, his sea. Upon arrival, he sees his mother standing by a marketplace. He questions whether the Greece he's seeing is still home because he didn't know anymore, and he lost his way but came back. His mother replies, "The rocks give birth to Greeks. The sea nurtures them, teaches them freedom, and they will fly away." This idea is central to the film. The way this film sees the formation of Greekness is exactly as his mother described. Varvakis, a free-spirited, self-serving young pirate, was born Greek. The sea, being his passion, nurtures him, offering him great wealth, power, and happiness. He then loses sight and contact of his fatherland for his own personal pursuit, traveling far away. He ultimately comes back, more Greek than he ever was. It is fascinating how, contrary to other national narratives, national identity is not formed inside the geographical boundaries of a country. For example, to be American is to fight against the British tyranny on American land. In Greece, the making of a Greek hero originates from the action of leaving Greece. It focuses on exploration and realization of the innate identity deep inside every Greek and compels every one of them to come to Greece's rescue. Lastly, in the ending sequence, the camera zooms in on a little Greek village girl's face. Having heard the great adventure of Varvakis, she's utterly in awe and inspired. This is the power of stories in shaping history, creating a collective memory for all Greeks to cherish. Compared to God Loves Caviar's emphasis on leaving Greece and returning, Van Ling's Cliffs of Freedom offers another interpretation of this concept. This film is based on Mariam Metropoulos's novel Daughter of Destiny. Long before the revolution of 1821, the Turks' brutal form of governance led to many innocent Greeks killed. One of them is the protagonist Anna Christina's aunt, who chose to jump off a cliff instead of being captured and capitulating to the enemy. On the cliff, however, hit the young Anna, who was spared by a compassionate Turk army colonel, Tariq. Years later, local insurrections become more and more frequent, alarming the Ottoman local garrisons at nearby cities. So the Pasha sends Tariq's battalion to survey the area and hopefully capture the revolutionaries. Among the ranks was a vicious officer named Sunal, who despises the Greeks and reserved no mercy for them. Anna lives in a village nearby. Compared to the outright animosity her brothers and father have for the Turks, Anna's primary concern is marriage. Her family legacy and her aunt's heroic display in defiance for the Greeks don't really concern her. During Sunal's surveillance in Anna's village, her father, mother, and brothers were all wrongfully murdered under the suspicion of involving in revolutionary activities. Though Anna previously believed that not all Turks are bloodthirsty monsters, since one actually saved her life, she's completely enraged by Captain Sunal's merciless murders of her family. Swearing vengeance, she decides to leave her village to join the freedom fighters. She makes a name for her valiant personality and cunning strategies fighting for the freedom fighters, giving each of her kills a death spell. Soon enough, there are words about this undefeatable Greek witch who hunts for Ottoman lives. Subsequently, her valiance becomes the backbone and a huge morale boost to all freedom fighters in the countryside. Her existence comes to define the freedom-loving Greeks who are willing to sacrifice their lives for a brighter future. In the end, she finds her identity as a representation of Greekness during the revolution. Indeed, we see a similar transformation in Anna's character, from a girl who is concerned with preparing herself for a good marriage to a fierce female freedom fighter, leading the men on and inspiring them to find their worth in revolution. Anna's transformation is prompted by grief and adversity, which cause her to embark on an identity exploration. Towards the beginning of the film, Anna has a suitor who's Greek but works for the Ottomans. Her father rejects him by saying he's not worth our family's name. Anna's visibly concerned, raising doubts about the prospect of a marriage. Seeing her grandmother, she complains to her, "The burden of a family weighs down on me."
Another suitor unsuited to the honor of our family's name. Of my name. And sometimes I fear that I'll never be allowed to marry. Why did you...
Here in this scene, we get to learn so much about Anna as a character. The suitor who is a traitor does not immediately receive a reaction of disgust from Anna. She watches their exchange from afar. It is quite apparent that Anna desires marriage and to lead a normal, ordinary life. She has no rebellious ambitions and simply wants to fit into the social expectations of a woman. Her family honor, rather than empowering and inspiring her to achieve great things, only serves as dead weight in her pursuit of a good marriage. She is portrayed as only a meek and gentle village girl. Later, when playing with her brothers in the woods, Anna asks them to help her, to which her brothers respond, "We are freedom fighters. We do not tie oregano."
Alexei, come help your sister.
Baba says I'm a freedom fighter. We do not tie oregano.
I'm good.
She finds it funny and puts no thoughts into it. Here we can see she doesn't see it a possibility for a woman like her to join the freedom fighters and fight for Greece's freedom, again reiterating her focus on leading an ordinary life. However, soon after she meets Tariq, the Turk colonel who saved her life years ago on the cliff, and talks to him. She learns from Tariq that Officer Sunal is suspicious of his father's activity. Trusting Tariq's words, she passes them on to his father. Her father is enraged that his daughter would innocently trust a Turk. Compared to the rest of her family, Anna doesn't really have the intense hatred for Turks because a Turk actually saved her life. Her allegiance to Greece does not totally align with her family. The altercation between her and her family causes her to reflect on her actions and how it could potentially bring great danger to her family. However, after her family gets ruthlessly murdered by Captain Sunal, she loses trust for Tariq. Exiting her destroyed home, she declares herself an avenger for her family, wearing her heroic Aunt Christina's scarf and taking her name. We, the audience, see a sudden transformation in her character induced by her family's death. The innocent Anna is nowhere to be found. Instead, we see determination and conviction in her eyes. Her only goal is no longer a good marriage, but revenge. Though we see her taking up arms, it is crucial to elucidate the motivation behind the sudden transformation. She's fighting for her family, not for Greece. There's no sign of a higher calling, one involving liberating the country, that leads her to fight. Following her vow, she leaves her village to join the freedom fighters. As subsequent battles come to prove, she is the bravest and smartest fighter of all, outclassing her brothers in arms. Gradually, we see Anna's purpose change, fighting alongside her fellow fighters. She is no longer one of them, but a great leader that represents what they believe in and fight for. She empowers them with courage and purpose. Indeed, she helps all figure out who they are.
You've helped all of us figure out who we are. To Christina! To Christina! Christina!
Rather than being driven simply by her desire for vengeance, she's now also dedicating herself to freeing the nation. Gradually, as she comes to represent Greek revolutionary spirit, so is she a painful thorn to the Ottomans. Her success draws the attention of the Ottoman forces, and a large-scale attack from the Turks is imminent. The night before the battle, the renowned revolutionary leader Kolokotronis asks her to deliver a speech to the soldiers.
It is said that the strongest weapons are not made of lead and steel, but of love and hope. What you carry in your heart can rule nations. And we will need your inspiration for the long war to come. These are the words of Bishop Hieromanos, to be read in every camp by a true Greek patriot.
They have taken that for which we were best known to the peoples of the world. They have murdered the equality and freedom which we invented with democracy. For 400 years, these Turks tortured and killed us, along with our ideals which benefit all mankind. And we accept it, having been born with it. They've taken our numbers from 20 million to 1 million. It is time each man, woman, and child be willing to sacrifice their life if necessary. Because there will never be enough of us to attempt this again. And if these Turks kill what little remains, history will write that we were free again. Before disappearing from God's earth.
Right.
Together, we fight from these hills and cliffs for our freedom! Freedom!
Now, she has truly become a symbol representing the Greek struggle for freedom and a source of inspiration that all Greeks need for the long war to come. Because of adversity, she has grown from an ordinary village girl to a dutiful avenger of her family, to a leader of the freedom fighters, and now a symbol of the entire nation. Her transformation happens away from home, on her journey to discover who she really is and who she can really become. The day of battle, Anna's fellow fighters fight fiercely and valiantly, and Anna, using her cunningness, avenges her family by killing Captain Sunal. Despite their valiant fight, they're outnumbered. Anna is driven by the Turks to the mountain where a cannonball strikes, creating a cliff. Colonel Tariq follows her, wishing to ensure her safety. He tries to convince Anna that now she has avenged her family, it is time to leave everything behind and escape with him to a place where bloodshed and hatred is nowhere to be seen. She hesitates, but nonetheless jumps off the cliff. She conveys with her action freedom or death one last time. This is the climax of Anna's transformation away from home. By jumping off, not only does she inspire young fighters who still have the conviction that Greece will be free one day, she becomes an immortal incarnation of Greek identity that will inspire generations to come. As we can see from a very brief analysis of these two films, the two characters develop their Greekness from surmounting adversity while being away from home. Varvakis realizes his years of negligence of his fatherland and devotes all his life and wealth to redeem himself, rendering himself a Greek legend. Anna, aggrieved by her family's demise, transforms into an avenger, a leader, a symbol of her family heritage, and more significantly, Greek nationhood. I hope this video has illustrated the importance of studying historical events with a constantly shifting lens. Greece, being a seafaring country, is an apt representation of how we should endeavor to dissect these historical events. To understand history is to stand on watery grounds. It is to constantly shift your perspective, denying a dominant narrative carefully curated by the textbook. It is to seek for sources such as the films I've chosen that diversify our understanding of the formation of national identity, for example. It is to challenge them and to reinterpret them, all the while knowing that this is only one out of infinite possibilities. The opening of Cliffs of Freedom puts it aptly. We see our ancestors through the fabric of history as distant figures whose fates and deeds echo down through the ages like ripples on a river. They become mere shadows that define an event, anonymous impressions of triumph or tragedy that fill our history books. Through the distance of time, details of what was are lost. Only simple impressions remain, moments, actions, lives, deaths. The stories we tell ourselves and our children are not always what was, but what we wish them to be. This is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching.